Hello and welcome to the Functional Health Podcast with Ben Atkinson. I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Tom O'Bryan and Marzi O'Bryan to talk about healthy pregnancy. Tom is a functional medicine wizard and has been on the podcast many times before, and Marzi is also trained in nutritional therapy herself. They both recently became parents to their baby boy Gio, and we talk about their experience through pregnancy, what they did to support their baby and themselves throughout the entire process, the most helpful resources for pregnancy, and much, much more. At the end, Marzi and Tom tell a story, and I was hugely moved by it, and I feel that more people need to hear information like this. Okay, let's get into it. Marzi, Tom, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is so wonderful to see you both, and you both seem to be thriving over in Costa Rica.
Yes, we are. We are grateful that we've created a lifestyle that supports our purpose. And our primary purpose in life right now is to create as healing and non-traumatic an environment as possible for our son.
Yes.
That's absolutely wonderful.
When you begin to look at the world that infants and toddlers live in, with the constant stress, the constant noise pollution, the constant trauma that they're exposed to on a daily basis that we take for granted, it becomes clearer why already this year there's been 128 mass shootings in the United States, as defined by 4 people or more are killed at one time. Why is this world going crazy? And we believe that a significant contribution to that is the brain and neural network of how our children develop.
I couldn't agree with you more. Do you think there's part of that is a disconnection away from nature? Because where you are currently, you seem to be surrounded by it. Was that a conscious decision for you?
Yes, it was. And especially before the March 2020, we had a quick decision to make if we go back to Italy and be locked down for God knows how long.
We were living in northern Italy at the time.
And at that particular time, I was in Ireland and Tom was in the US, and we just made a quick decision. We're going to Costa Rica. And that was a completely conscious decision, and probably one of the best ones yet.
Yeah, when we found out that airports were about to close and that the epicenter of this virus outside of China was in northern Italy, less than 100 miles from the village we lived in, we decided we aren't going back right now until we learn more. And then we kind of looked at each other, on FaceTime on the phone and said, let's go to Costa Rica. We had been here for our honeymoon and we really liked it. So we came back. 2 weeks later, we were pregnant and Gio was born here.
Wonderful story. It really is a wonderful story. And I'm so glad to have you on to talk about healthy pregnancy and kind of from the whole story. So as you were pregnant, Marzi, all the way to birth, how do people look after themselves and the little one during this time? And what do they need to consider? First off, your feelings, both of you. How did you feel when you found out Marzi was pregnant?
Oh, ecstatic and terrified, because I think that's normal for a woman. I was kind of disappointed because all the movies are like, you see the positive pregnancy test that you wanted to see and you're supposed to be crying and be so happy. But what hits you is the responsibility and the reality of it. And it's like, whoa, it's happening.
Also, we had a loss.
We had a loss of pregnancy, not, yes.
We had
just a month earlier.
In January and February, we lost a pregnancy, an early pregnancy, and we didn't know at the time, but it was a blighted ovum. And what I've learned is that it happens to many, many, many women, and they never know. They think they just miss a cycle, and their next cycle is heavier Well, it turned out that they were pregnant, and when the sperm fertilizes the egg, the first division from that one cell to two cells goes down two different pathways. One pathway goes to the mom's womb to say, okay, we're pregnant here, let's start to build a nest. And the other pathway goes down to develop baby. Well, the pathway to mom's womb continued developing, and Marzi's blood tests were positive for pregnancy. First, the urine test was positive, then the blood tests were positive, and she's getting a little bulge, but at one point, she went in for an ultrasound, and there was no heartbeat, and there was no baby.
Well, there was never a heartbeat.
Yeah, there was never a heartbeat, but that second cell, that first division, one cell goes to mom's womb, the other cell goes to the developing baby. That second cell never developed.
Right.
But mom thought she was pregnant. We thought we were pregnant.
Because the sac is visible on the ultrasound.
Right.
It's just empty sac. It's so weird.
And no one talks about this. And it's extremely common. When you start to read the science on this, you can't believe how often this occurs, where a woman thinks that she missed a cycle and the next cycle comes and it's much heavier, cramping and all. It's a miscarriage.
Well, I'm very, very sorry to hear that you had to go through that experience.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. As were we. It was terrifying, and really hard. But when, as Marzi said, when we got pregnant a month and a half later, we were happy, but we were scared at the same time.
I imagine from that previous experience, you approached that with much more caution.
Honestly, I think I was more relaxed. I think the first pregnancy, it's a lot of stress.
Yes.
Because the responsibility, oh my God, I'm carrying a life. It's so huge. It's unbelievable. I don't remember anyone talking about this heaviness of it. So the first time, I think I was a lot more scared and a lot more stressed. The second time around, even though it was after the miscarriage, it was easier in a way because I've done it already.
Yeah,
I had these feelings, Obviously, we were not sure. I think it's a weird time. The beginning of pregnancy, it's weird because there are some symptoms. There is the positive test, and before you go and hear the heartbeat, is like, am I really? Am I pregnant? Maybe I'm just not. Maybe I just ate something. Not.
Well, also with our previous experience, not that long beforehand, we were concerned, is this going to be another one of those?
Yes.
So, all those thoughts were going on. So when we went in for an ultrasound and had confirmation, it was a big sigh of relief, and I think maybe some tears of joy. And for me, yeah. I think so.
But the environment that we chose, I think it's perfect. And the team that I have chosen for my birth was also perfect. It was easy to find. It was just, we are happy with our decision. And until today, for Gio, it's a perfect environment.
Marzi refers to the team. We had 2 midwives, 2 doulas, a hypnotherapist, a pelvic floor therapist, a massage therapist that dealt with demons to get rid of any demons. We were and just as prepared as, and Marzi was drinking the pregnancy teas and taking the pregnancy multiple vitamins. Oh, we also had a nutritional consultant who specializes in pregnancies. She's really marvelous. Her site is growbabyhealth.com. And every woman should use that service of how to have a healthy pregnancy. She's just the very best.
And also the coffee, right?
And the coffee. That's where we learned about the coffee.
You were going to have to explain the coffee. Now my ears have perked up.
Our coffee, Marzi's coffee every day during the pregnancy and afterwards has continued, is coffee. We use a French press, but however you make it, And then I add a level teaspoon of coconut sugar, a big tablespoon of ghee, 2 pumps of MCT oil, and 2 raw egg yolks, and a scoop of collagen to her coffee. And you blend it all together with a handheld blender. Nice. And it's just delicious. Now, I don't like the egg yolks, so mine doesn't have the egg yolks, but mine is the same in every other aspect. And I add cinnamon in mine.
And use a hand blender, so it's basically like a white latte. There's no, it's wonderful. Yeah,
we use a hand blender that's kind of powerful one, and it's creamy like a latte, and the collagen powder helps a lot for that. And the collagen comes from Brain Bean Nutrition. It's just the best collagen, purest collagen from their sources, Gelita, out of, I think they're Denmark. They're the highest quality collagen on the planet. And so we have that every day for skin, integument, hair, and connective tissue. That's the collagen formulation that we chose. And I add that every day to our coffee. And the result was Marzi's pregnancy. She was just the most beautiful woman. She is the most beautiful woman for me. But during the pregnancy, she had the Buddha belly, which meant if you looked at her from behind, you couldn't tell that she was pregnant. There was no excess weight gain. There was weight gain, but it wasn't excess, and it was all in the right places where it's supposed to be. She still had her curves from behind, and we live in the jungle of Costa Rica. It's in the high 70s to mid 80s here Fahrenheit all the time. And we're completely isolated. So we walk around in shorts and tank top just all day, every day. And so this beautiful pregnant mama, walking around and just had a great pregnancy, and in every aspect, it was just a perfect pregnancy. Doing the hypnobirth lessons for months beforehand and practicing, Marzi's state of being was one of relaxation and calm on a daily basis, and there's very little stress here. And
we're going to have to unpick that, I think. I first want to talk about nutrition, but the hypno and the stress management is definitely a topic which I'm going to dive into. So I don't want to go there just yet. But in terms of nutrition, so pregnant, Gio's on the way, exciting. Tom, I imagine your head's immediately into the science of the perfect baby, how to deliver the perfect baby. Take me through your thought processes. What did you look at first? And Marzi, what were your initial thoughts?
Our diet is completely organic, unless we go into town and go to a restaurant and then have the highest quality we can, but it's usually not organic. A couple of restaurants it is, but so I would say 85% of everything we eat is organic, and that's critically important. Just to give you an example, in the Journal of the American Medical Association, they did a study where the editors of the study wrote a comment saying, "This is an elegant study with sophisticated biomarkers to prove their point." Now, the editors of the Journal of the American Medical Association do not say that very often. That was quite a stamp of approval. And the article was looking at couples at assisted fertility centers. And they ruled out all of the different markers: obesity, exercise, lack of exercise, smoking. And they isolated the amount of fruits and vegetables the couple ate, and were they organic or conventional? They divided them into fourths, the lowest, the next, the third, and the highest fourth. And then they compared the two groups, conventional fruits and vegetables or organic fruits and vegetables, in the highest category of consumption. And what they found out just shocked them, that those eating conventional fruits and vegetables, meaning what you buy at the local market, supermarket, they had an 18% less likelihood of getting pregnant. 18%. But if they did get pregnant, they had a 26% less likelihood of a live birth.
It's phenomenal.
26%. They lost the pregnancies. And compared to the other group of similar couples eating fruits and vegetables, but organic. Mm-hmm. And any couple that wants to get pregnant now, one of the prerequisites, you clean up your diet for a minimum of 3 and preferably 6 months before you get pregnant, to get these toxic chemicals out of your system that are there. Now, this is a crucially important concept. So I'm going to give you one more study. And Marzi's just leaning back and patiently waiting while I do my thing, right? But in Chicago, 346 pregnant women, they collected urine in the 8th month of pregnancy. And they measured the urine for 5 phthalates. Phthalates are plasticizers, chemicals used to mold plastic. And there are many, but they just measured 5, one of them being BPA, the one that many people have heard of. And they broke the results into fourths, the lowest, the next, the third, and the highest fourth. They then followed the offspring of those pregnancies for 7 years. And when the children turn 7 years old, they did Wechsler IQ tests on them, the official IQ test. And what they found was startling, that the kids whose mothers were in the highest level of phthalates in urine in pregnancy, compared to the children whose mothers were in the lowest fourth of phthalates in urine in pregnancy, the kids in the highest fourth, their IQ was 7 points lower, 6.7 to 7.4 points lower. Now, that doesn't mean anything to anyone until you understand that a 1-point difference in IQ is noticeable. A 7-point difference in IQ is a difference between a child working really hard, getting straight A's, and a child working really hard, getting straight C's. That child doesn't have a chance in hell of ever excelling with brain performance because mom was high in phthalates during pregnancy. Mm-hmm. Now just go to Google and type in phthalates, PHTHALATES, phthalates and neurogenesis, nerve growth. Here come the studies. So those moms who were the highest in phthalate levels, their babies' brains did not develop to the level of the babies' brains of the moms in the lowest level of phthalates.
Right, yes.
That's why you have to eat organic when you want to bring a baby into this world, because that's just one study of so many studies like this. You know, and it gets overwhelming if you do study after study after study for people. They just kind of tune out because it's overwhelming. I'm just giving you just those 2 studies about why organics are important. It's a prerequisite if you want a healthy baby.
I mean, one thing which I think people struggle with is where do these phthalates come from? And we actually did a podcast about this, so I will link to it in the show notes. But also, the first study actually nicely links in with the second study in a sense that we know that cruciferous vegetables, for example, help with phase 2 liver detoxification and a number of other processes which can help the detoxification of these phthalates and other chemicals as well. So I think it's like a double whammy, if you will. You are reducing the toxic burden from the environment and the food, but you're also increasing your ability to detox because of the nutrients and phytonutrients that you're consuming.
That's exactly right. But if you're eating conventional broccoli that's loaded with glyphosate on it, and then you're hoping, the balance, the seesaw. I mean, is it worse? I've got glyphosate that's killing off my microbiome and creating a dysbiotic microbiome that creates leaky gut, intestinal permeability, and systemic inflammation. Is that worse than the cruciferous quality of the flavonoids in the broccoli that's going to help me detox other chemicals in my body? So of course, you always want to go for the most supportive foods to enhance detoxification, but you want non-toxic supportive foods to enhance detoxification.
Of course, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. I think one thing that we struggle with, particularly in the UK, which is where I'm calling from, is organic food is often wrapped in plastics anyway. So unless you go to a farmer's market, it's incredibly difficult, actually, to eat organic without it being contaminated in the first place. I don't know whether you have a workaround.
Well, there is a workaround for that. There are veggie washes that are highly effective at washing off the residue that's on the surface of the vegetables, like the little bit, the BPA from the plastic that gets on the surface of your cauliflower. That washes off pretty easily. It's the chemicals that are inside the vegetable or the fruit that you can't wash off. So if your source of organic is wrapped in plastic, okay, then just dip it in some veggie wash and it'll help reduce that amount of plasticizers dramatically.
In which case, I've made a note to look up veggie wash and link to it in the show notes for listeners. And the fact that I need to get some as well is probably...
Yes.
When we talk about diet, I mean, you both, it's your background. Marzi, nutritional therapist background. Tom, I can't remember how many qualifications you actually have now, but it's coming out your ears. So it must come quite naturally to you, and you were probably eating an organic, very good diet prior to birth anyway, as your base state. Should people change? Did you change anything up? Tom, you mentioned egg yolks and fats within the coffee. Was there any reason to increase those fatty acids, and what did you focus on in particular?
So something that I had to change and I didn't know about is the protein intake. I didn't eat enough protein because pregnancy requires to eat up to 100 grams a day, which is very difficult. And this continues throughout breastfeeding. So, but once you get into the habit, it's fine. So the coffee helped with the protein as well, because collagen itself was 20 grams, and then the egg yolks was maybe 16 grams. So I had 30 grams in with my coffee, and I was like, okay, I'm on the right track.
But by the way, that's the value of growbabyhealth.com.
Yes.
Right.
Is that you learn the science of how to have a healthy pregnancy.
Right. And then maybe a little extra magnesium for obviously the whole body, stretching the muscles and skin and so on. Collagen was great for the skin. Water intake a lot more than average person needs to, especially living in such a hot climate.
Of course.
What else did I have to take extra?
The
I put
collagen.
4,000 milligrams of vitamin C in Marzi's first glass of water every morning.
That's right.
4,000 is significant. Why so high?
Well, Linus Pauling is the only man that has ever won the Nobel Prize twice. Very famous nutritional scientist in the 1960s and 70s. And I saw an interview with him when he was in his mid-80s, and he just as sharp as could be with his brain, and he was looking at the camera had this little smirk on his face. He said, yes, my wife and I take 18,000 milligrams of vitamin C every day, and when we get old, we'll take more. And he was 84 at the time. So I'm willing to concede that he knows more than I do. And I always feel better. I just feel better when I'm taking 4,000 to 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day. And I've read the studies that say you only can absorb 500 milligrams a day. And that comes from animal studies. And, maybe it's true, but I don't know. I feel okay with it. And I've done this for years. And so I'm going to continue doing it, because if I can be like Linus Pauling when I'm in my mid to late 80s, I'm going to be a happy guy.
There's so much I could go into here. I'll try not to focus on this too much. So you said 4,000 milligrams, but you said 4 to 10. That's also a significant jump. Is that circumstantial? So if you're having a particularly stressful day, you will increase it. And Marzi was the same at this time, or what was the reasoning?
Yes, that's correct. And some days, if I'm feeling like, I just need a little boost today, or, I feel like, I've got a little congestion. I'm going to take some more vitamin C, and then I'll take more. So our daily dose is 4,000, one scoop. The product we use is called Vitality C because it has ribose in it, and ribose is critical to the formation of ATP, the primary energy in the mitochondria of every cell of your body. So we're getting dosed with vitamin C and ribose. Some days, not often, maybe once every 2 weeks, I'll take a second scoop, or a little bit more than that, a heaping scoop. But usually it's one scoop a day for both of us.
Fascinating. And the GI effects, you don't experience any gastrointestinal?
None at all. And it may be, and I've often told patients this, you have to titrate up. Just start with like a quarter of a scoop a day for 3 days. And if that's okay, then go to a half a scoop. Because if you're going to have a reaction to something, usually it will happen within 3 days. So just titrate up a little bit at a time. It may take a while for your body to acclimate. That's okay. You're getting a good dose. Just stay below bowel tolerance levels. It's called the Pauling protocol. That when someone is sick, I give them the Pauling protocol, and that is you take 500 to 1,000 milligrams every waking hour. And when you get a little bit of loose bowels or diarrhea, you stop, but you count how many doses did I have today. And let's say you had 12 doses that day. And so then you take 1 day off after that to get rid of the loose bowels. And then the day after that, you take 75% of that. So if it was 12, now you're going to take 9 doses spaced out throughout the day. And you'll do that every day until you get loose bowels. And when you get loose bowels, you just stop for a day. And then the next day, you take 75% of that. So that'll be about 6. And then 6 doses throughout the day. And eventually you find the dose where you don't get loose bowels. And so now you've saturated your tissue with vitamin C, and then you'll learn what it takes to keep you there.
Fascinating. I will link to some resources in the show notes and the Pauling protocol. There's also Robert Cathcart and a few other vitamin C researchers and clinicians, I think, which would be useful. Fascinating. I'm going to leave that there because I could do a whole podcast on vitamin C dosing. So we're going to leave that alone for now. Marzi, you mentioned collagen. Collagen is a really interesting supplement. There's also many different types. I'd be interested to know what type you actually used in terms of type 1, 3, 5, etc., and why.
So the one I chosen was organic, and it was Garden of Life, I suppose. And I chosen this one because it was flavorless, which in pregnancy is very important because some flavors, they might just make you yucky. And then it was 20 grams of protein in a scoop. So for me, it was awesome because I didn't even know I have it.
And what was the source? Do you know if it was bovine or sternum?
Bovine.
Bovine. Yes.
Bovine.
Okay. Yeah. I wasn't familiar. So I think there's different types for different reasons. A lot of people use type 2 for the cartilage of your joints, and type 1 and 3 is normally from bovine, which is why I asked. I wasn't sure.
Gotcha. That was my choice of not being really oriented in types.
Most important was that it was something pleasant that a pregnant woman could take.
Yes.
And that it's animal-based and that it's organic, basically. Yes.
Yeah.
And safe.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's one thing which people don't recognize, that you need to get a high quality supplement because it's so easy to be contaminated with heavy metals and things of that nature, which a lot of people aren't aware of. And even though Amazon can be great in terms of speed of delivery from things, there are brands on there which don't have their own website and aren't third party tested, which is just something that people need to be aware of, I think.
That's a great insight.
People should know from their doctors about folic acid intake and omega-3 and the prevention of neural tube defects, got there eventually, and omega-3s for healthy brain development. Is there anything that you focused on in particular in terms of specific nutrients? You've mentioned magnesium. Is there anything else?
Well, definitely the fish oils. I was taking different types of fish oils.
We asked Grow Baby Health about that, and they recommended multiples to us also.
Right. They have like a nice package, which is a pouch, a daily pouch which consists of fish oils as well. But I was taking extras.
Right. So the daily packet from Grow Baby Health has methylated folate and B12 and a number of critical substances for pregnant mom. And then we supplemented that for Marzi with extra fish oil and collagen and the ghee. And I don't think there was anything else. I don't remember anything else. Vitamin D, right. I'd give her a 50,000 IU of vitamin D once a week or once every 2 weeks.
Once a week. So that's significant, I guess. What you're looking at, 7,000 IU a day average. Okay. Why that particular dose? Does the need go up in pregnancy?
Well, I think the need for all supplements go up a little bit in pregnancy, because mom's doing the work of two. But in the world of vitamin D, we had done some testing for Marzi pre-pregnancy over the years, and her vitamin D levels thrived. The goal is to be between 50 and 75 nanograms per milliliter. And in England, they use a different measuring system, but it converts easily enough. You can find out what the numbers are. And the goal is to be between 50 and 75 nanograms per milliliter, which reduces your risk of developing chronic inflammatory diseases dramatically, and specifically autoimmune diseases. So we found out over the course of a few years together that, if Marzi takes 50,000 units once every couple of weeks, she's great. Her blood value stays where it needs to be. And so in the pregnancy, it was about once a week. Whenever I remembered, I give it to her.
And I would still take my 5,000 to 7,000 a day.
Right.
Yes. Oh, so on top of, okay. Interesting. And you were testing throughout. I guess this is one thing which people find interesting when we take supplements, whether people test to know whether they actually need them or not. But I'm guessing you were testing throughout this process.
Right. The rule is test, don't guess. Especially with vitamin D. I consider vitamin D the most important biomarker to monitor on a lifetime basis. Much more important than total cholesterol. And I'm not saying don't do total cholesterol, but vitamin D levels are much more important. Many, many systems of the body will begin to function sluggishly if you have borderline levels of vitamin D. And so what does it mean to function sluggishly? Well, how many of you get foggy brains, get brain fog, right? Or how many of you just get tired every once in a while? I'm just tired. I didn't work out hard or anything, but I'm just tired. Or, any system of your body. There are only two substances that I'm aware of for which there are receptors on every cell of your body. One is thyroid hormone, because thyroid is the thermostat on the wall that keeps the temperature in the house correct where you want it. And in your cell, thyroid hormone controls your metabolism, the temperature of the cell. And the other is vitamin D. Every cell of your body needs vitamin D. So why would you ever be comfortable with adequate amounts? I would much rather be robust with the nutrient that every cell of my body needs.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I didn't know that either. Or thyroid hormone for that matter. So those are two things which I have certainly learnt. I can't recommend enough. Just people need to get the vitamin D levels checked. For me, I need to have 4,000 IU just to maintain my levels a day.
Yes.
And if I need to increase it, I go up to 10,000 in order to increase it. And that's just what I do. But other people are different. Some people increase their vitamin D levels with only 3,000 IU. So I think everyone's different. I'm not exactly sure why. But there you go, whether it's absorption, utilization, or whatever, or conversion. With omega-3, I have read a lot of papers, and this would have been last year, looking at different dosing of EPA and DHA specifically. So this is animal formed, or you can get some algae now which have both DHA and EPA. What are your specific recommendations, or what did you use and why?
Well, once again, test, don't guess. And there's a very simple finger prick test called the omega-3 red blood cell index. It's inexpensive. You just poke your finger, put a drop of blood on a card, send it off to the lab, and you find out you have adequate amounts of omega-3s, omega-6s, omega-9s, and then you know. So it depends on the individual, but the baseline recommendation is at least 3 grams a day. Perfectly safe, doesn't matter what degenerative disease you have. The studies are clear that up to 3,000 milligrams a day is safe. And so we start there with people, and then we'll do an omega-3 red blood cell index on them.
And is that 3,000 milligrams of combined EPA and DHA?
That is correct.
Okay, that's really good to know. And any ratios that you follow? Because I think normally in fish, I think it's around a 2 to 1, or maybe it's 3 to 2 ratio of EPA DHA.
It depends on what our goal is. You know, for someone that's concerned about brain function, we'll recommend products that are higher in DHA. And if it's more a systemic anti-inflammatory and many other benefits to fish oil approach, then we'll do the standard products that are higher in EPA. Right. EPA is more anti-inflammatory. DHA is more focused on brain cell raw materials. Mm-hmm. And that's a categorization. There's much more than that, but that's in general how we look at omega-3s.
That makes a lot of sense. And 3,000 milligrams is actually quite a high dose if you look at supplementation. But if there's benefit to that, then obviously people should take it, right? And that test, don't guess, I resonate with that so much. I think a lot of people take supplements without actually realizing or knowing why they are taking them and if they actually need them. So when they buy an expensive supplement and it doesn't work, well, maybe you just didn't need that particular supplement, or if there's a bottleneck or a dysfunction. Yeah, you need someone to understand what is not working or what is working, and B, need someone to test you and interpret those results.
You know, if I have a passion and someday it'll be a hobby, I'm going to get a 1957 Cadillac Baritz convertible. They only made 1,200 of them, and it's the most beautiful car, in my opinion, in the world. And I hope someday that I can get one. But
that might be a hint, Marzi.
When I get one, it's going to be from someone who has known that car and has the history of the car and takes care of every aspect of that car. So I know it's really a safe, solid car and nothing's going to break down. The same thing is true in your body. So many people think, well, you know, if I take fish oils and I don't feel better in a week, I'm not going to take them anymore. As well as if I put good brake fluid in my Cadillac and the car still spitters and sputters, you know, I'm not going to put more brake fluid in the car. I mean, it's just nonsense. Mm-hmm. You know, that we have this single mode concept. If I take this, I want to feel like that. And it's not the way the body works. You know, you need to be, if there's one thing you can do as an emphasis, it's live an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. And that means that's all encompassing. But in terms of supplements, it's individual for everyone. It's always going to be individual. And there's some basics that you can do, like a scoop of Vitality C every day, 3,000 milligrams of omega-3s a day. Those are just basic premises that are safe and effective. But targeted nutrition requires the concept of test. Don't guess. Mm-hmm. You have to test.
Absolutely. And this brings me on nicely to omega-6s and what to avoid. I think when we talk about omega-3s, people are always looking at the omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. And I'm wondering what your opinion is on avoiding not just seed oils, but also nuts and things of that nature, which even though they're a whole food, they are naturally high in these potentially inflammatory omega-6 oils.
Foods that are found in nature, nuts are found in nature. Nut oils are not. Olives are found in nature. Olive oils are not. But we'll use a little olive oil. Marzi puts it on her salad every day. On our table, she's got a little spray for a balsamic vinaigrette that she likes, and a little bottle of extra virgin cold pressed olive oil. She pours a little oil on her salad and puts a little spray of balsamic vinegar on it. But in terms of oils, we don't emphasize avoiding them or taking excess amounts, but we just make sure the only oils in the house are coconut, olive, and ghee. That's it. We just don't have any others around.
We need tons of butter.
Our son will take a stick of butter and walk around eating it.
In the supermarket.
Right? It keeps him busy while we're shopping, right? So we buy a box with 4 sticks in it, and then we give him one of them, and he's just walking around and everybody's looking at him like, "Oh my God!" And they're looking at us like, "What are you doing to this boy? He's going to be obese." And well, does he look obese to you? Right?
It's like candy. It's
butter. It's candy to him.
Yeah, I mean, is a lot of the fats in butter and the same components as that of breast milk, right? You've got some of the short chain fatty acids and things of that nature, high in butyrate. So people don't realize that, I think. Like, it's actually naturally you give that to a child when they are born, and even just extending that a little bit more, I think will naturally have benefits.
Butter's not bad for you. Bad butter is bad for you.
Right.
Bad butter is if you burn it, but aside from that, it's not bad for you.
Or with bad salt.
Casein, there's a little bit of casein in butter, and some people have a casein sensitivity. And the way you know if you can have butter or not is you do a blood test looking for antibodies to casein and casomorphins. And if you've got elevated antibodies, your immune system's fighting casein, you can't eat casein. So then you focus on ghee, because ghee is casein-free butter. Basically, it's clarified butter. That's what ghee is. And the only time you can't have ghee is if you have elevated antibodies to the milk butyrophilins, because the butyrophilins are the protein in the cell structure of the fat molecules. And so if you have elevated antibodies of butyrophilins, you can't have ghee either. But aside from that, ghee is an excellent food for people.
And for frying, for high temperature frying.
Yeah.
It's so tasty.
And it's delicious, yes. You have to eat healthy food, but you also have to enjoy it as well, right? Quick pause. We're thrilled to say that our sponsor for this podcast today is Human People. Human People is a personalised health platform set up by functionally trained doctors and nutritionists right here in the UK, and they're on a mission to give you a healthier, longer and more productive life. When we start to feel a bit tired, get aches, pains or brain fog, it can be a challenge to work out the root cause of that problem and how we can solve it. Well, Human People are offering a solution. They empower you to better understand your health issues and use AI technology to provide clear, actionable steps to help you meet your goals. Choose between blood, DNA, and gut tests to look for common nutritional deficiencies and important gene SNPs, and get your personalized recommendations reviewed by a doctor, and all for less than a price of your daily coffee. The quality of their supplements is excellent, and their recyclable packs means no more plastic bottles filling up your cupboard. Better for you, better for the planet. Head over to humanpeople.co/functionalhealth and use code functionalhealth, all one word, at checkout to get 10% off any of their tests. And if you purchase any of their bundles, you'll get 6 months of a high-quality omega-3 supplement absolutely free. Feel better, live healthier, and start your journey today at humanpeople.co/functionalhealth. Back to the show. I've heard so many stories of women when they're pregnant wanting very unusual things that they would never normally eat, but as well as sweet foods and very decadent foods. And I'm wondering if you had any and how you managed that.
So my first craving, which was something that I have never had in my life, and that was before I knew I'm pregnant, was gin and tonic.
Oh, that's right.
we just sat outside and I was like, oh, I need a gin and tonic now. And Tom was like, have you ever had a gin and tonic? I'm like, no, but I want one now.
And then you said,
and I joked, I was like, maybe I'm pregnant, ha ha ha. But you know, it was just maybe a month after the miscarriage, so I didn't, you know, for sure not. So Tom just ran to the store, brought gin and tonic, and we just had drinks, you know. Maybe 2 weeks after, a week after, we went to buy the pregnancy test.
I made her a gin and tonic every day.
For a week.
For a week. And then we did the pregnancy test and found out she was pregnant.
But then I just switched to tonic, and then Tom did some studies, and tonic really helps to get zinc into your body. So that was very interesting.
Yeah, let's stay there for a moment, because this is a time when COVID was starting to come out, and people really scared, not knowing what to do. And I started talking about it. I started Coffees with Dr. Tom in March of 2020, and every day we did about an hour on a different topic. And the way these viruses work is that they grab onto a receptor site and they get inside your cell. And when they get inside your cell, they shed. It's like dandruff. Viruses don't reproduce, they shed. But they can't shed very well, if at all, if you have adequate zinc inside your cells. So if the cells have adequate zinc, viruses can't shed very well at all. So they're stopped in their tracks. So that is where the Brits, when they were colonizing India in the 1800s, how did they prevent the Brits from getting malaria? It was by drinking this quinine from the fever tree in India. And the quinine is a zinc ionophore. And what that means is that it escorts zinc inside the cell, because zinc in your bloodstream is useless to support the immune system. It's got to get inside the cell. And to get inside the cell, it needs an escort. The most common one is zinc. Next is quercetin, which is a very good zinc ionophore. And so they got this quinine that they were given every day, but in a little bit of water, but it was so bitter tasting, they put a teaspoon of sugar in it. So it wasn't so bitter tasting. That's where the song came from. Just a little bit of sugar helps the medicine go down. That's where it came from. And the British soldiers got permission to add a little bit of gin to this quinine water sugar tonic that they made. Thus was born the gin and tonic. That's where it came from. So I started talking about that, about tonic water. And true tonic water it's high in quinine, which comes from the fever tree. Now there's commercial tonic waters that have none. It's all chemical based. But there's a company called Fever Tree that has 5 different types of tonic water. And they add a lot of sugar to it. So you don't want to drink that stuff very often. But they have one that has half the sugar. It's called India Light. Right. So there's an India, but there's another one called India Light. So we started buying cases of India Light. And every day Marzi and I would split a little bottle of tonic water with some limes in it and dilute it to a full glass of water with a little bit of the tonic in it with lime. And we had that every day. And that's what I'm drinking here right now is still my tonic. I usually have one a day because it's a zinc ionophore. So that reinforced for us to take it during the pregnancy, and Marzi did.
That sent Tom to research, because we were wondering why my body craved tonic, right? What's in tonic? That's really, but it's true. We didn't know it's very high in sugar. So I think the one I was drinking, it was 30 grams of sugar.
Oh, it was a huge amount of sugar. And I said, we can't do this. And then I found there was one that has less than half.
This one is like more. It's like 3 grams. Or something.
I think it's
really
3 or 5 grams.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. I will also link to that in the show notes. I'm partial to a gin and tonic too, so Amphibian is a brand that I also prefer. So there you go. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So other cravings, I would say, what else was I craving? I was craving Cinnabons.
Right. And Cinnabons you have had before, I'm guessing, or is this another?
No, and I hate cinnamon.
She hates cinnamon.
But you were craving it now. Did you try any cinnamon and enjoy it out of interest?
Before only in applesauce, or
Yes.
in apple pie a little bit, but that's it. That's where I drew the line. The rest is like, no, yucky. So Cinnabon, it was my guilty pleasure, and to keep the balance, I would work out hard. And then at the end of the workout, I would have a gluten-free Cinnabon.
Right. We found a bakery for gluten-free Cinnabons.
So good. And a glass of cashew milk, and that was my reward. So keeping balance is very important, not to go crazy, Absolutely. The body needs Cinnabons. That means that there is some nutrients in Cinnabons that the body needs. Okay.
That's good rationale.
But I think that's great what you said. Like, you balanced it out with the exercise as well, which is hugely important. We know that gestational diabetes can be a real problem for some women, but obviously if you're going to spike blood sugar in that way and you can burn it off and lower that insulin secretion, that's a beautiful way to do it. So you can still enjoy the craving that you've had, but not have any of the detriment, which is very good. Or minimize the detriment, I should say.
Mentally, it's like even. It's like it never happens.
And it's good for your soul.
That's one of the prerequisite tests in my checklist that I'm putting together before getting pregnant is a HOMA score, HOMA. A HOMA score is just getting your fasting insulin and fasting glucose level. And then there's a formula you plug it into, and it measures insulin sensitivity or insulin resistance. Meaning, is your body using insulin very well? If it's not, your body has to make more insulin, and that leads to type 2 diabetes and all kinds of complications in pregnancy. So if a woman's HOMA score is out of balance, meaning she's got insulin resistance, the body is resisting insulin, she needs to clean that up first before she gets pregnant. And that usually takes 3 to 6 months of changing your diet, lifestyle, and maybe taking some supplements. Depends on the individual. Doesn't take too long, but you need to clean that up first, or you're at higher risk of having complications in the pregnancy.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. I think, unfortunately, a lot more people now are suffering with hormonal derangement for a lot of different issues, including PCOS and things like that, where insulin resistance is an underlying complication, let's say, in a lot of these conditions, which is just exacerbates the issue if these women do get pregnant. In terms of managing that, though, when people are pregnant, would it just purely be through, obviously, working with your doctor if you need insulin, get on insulin, but a low carbohydrate paradigm or modality, is that what you'd suggest?
Well, that's really a challenge because the woman has to be comfortable and not worried during her pregnancy. So if she's worrying about every little thing she eats, it's going to cause so much stress for her that you really have to, it's a balancing act. That's why complications are reduced dramatically. They did over 5,000 pregnancies before they published the paper on the paradigm that's set at growbabyhealth.com. Emily, who runs that, her mother and father were obstetricians. So they delivered over 5,000 babies. So every day of her life, there was a new baby being born that mom or dad had to go help out with, right? And so the result is that they've got it down now, and they published on this, the dramatic reduction in complications of pregnancy with these simple things that you do. Just do these basic, simple things, and the severe complications are reduced dramatically.
And it's also great to have a coach, because me as a nutritional therapist, I didn't know what I need and how do I get it. It's so funny. It's almost like when Tom gets sick and I'm like, are you taking this? No. Are you taking this? No. You know, it's like we don't think about ourselves when we need to, when we are in this situation. So Emily basically broke it down to me and make it easy for me so I didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Because I think in pregnancy it's very important to eat often, not to allow the sugar crush, and eat a lot of protein. So thanks for mentioning that, because she was basically my coach in how to maintain my diet with adequate nutrition.
Right.
That's perfect. And I think it says a lot about managing stress as well. If you're not stressed about those kinds of things, and then cortisol, which I think stress when you're pregnant, I mean, this is just my observation. I've never experienced pregnancy. My partner's never got pregnant yet, although that will probably be on the cards in the future. It's a stressful time. Normally people are dealing with some form of, not complication, I want to say, we can call it a complication. So whether it be nausea or pain or fatigue, they're quite common, I think, for most people. And that's an added stress as well. And I was going to actually talk about stress management now, but maybe those three things we could touch upon. Did you experience anything, any other symptom like nausea, like fatigue, or any pain which you had to manage yourself? And if you didn't, why don't you think you did?
No, I did have some nausea. I think up to the third month, I had some nausea and fatigue. Yes,
I would have said that you had no nausea because you handled it so well. I don't recall that it was ever immobilizing or.
No. It was just a little bit. It wasn't. And I also have a theory. I'm not sure is that true, but I think the less toxic you are, the less nausea you will have.
I agree.
Women who are throwing up like crazy. My friend, she was throwing up to Labor Day, basically, when she had the baby. That was the last day she stopped. I think it was the level of toxicity. Body's trying to get rid of something and it can't, and it's just
right.
But that's just my theory, so I'm not sure if that's the case. But detox is definitely very, very important. And I was talking to my friends, and those who took the 6 months before and did a proper detox did not experience those symptoms that much, if any.
Right.
Fascinating.
I think a little bit of fatigue, but I didn't have stress about working. I didn't have to work that much. I was basically handing over my position to another person. Thankfully, we found someone really amazing to do that. And I could just relax and read books and meditate and learn about hypnobirth. And it was the suntan at the pool. So I'm really grateful that I was so fortunate to have such conditions during my pregnancy.
Mm-hmm. And the idea of having a less toxic burden and that affecting nausea, I think, it makes sense to me. By
the way, you never detox when you're pregnant.
Right.
Never. But what you can do is eat the foods that help support detoxification, as you mentioned earlier, like cruciferous vegetables and dandelion greens, but you don't take supplements to enhance detoxification.
Let's go into why, because some people will be listening and not know the reason for that.
Why?
Why?
Because a pregnancy is a foreign substance in your body. And your immune system has to be shut down so it doesn't attack the fetus. It's a foreigner. It's not supposed to be there. And there's this elaborate immune compensation that occurs to allow the pregnancy, the fetus to stay and develop. I mean, it's a beautiful system we have. But when you start encouraging your immune system, get rid of these chemicals, get rid of this toxic stuff, you run the risk of having an overflow into attacking the fetus itself. So you never do detox principles or products during pregnancy. Perfectly safe to eat foods that help to support the natural detoxification pathways. Perfectly safe to do that.
Thank you, Tom. And I think that moves quite nicely onto stress. You mentioned hypnobirthing before, Marzi. And I think if people don't need to worry about detoxing whilst they're pregnant and just worry about the food, I think there's one less stress to worry about. So yeah. With the hypnobirthing, I know a friend of mine who did it and swore by it, said it was absolutely a game changer. I'd love to know your experience.
I think, yeah, I definitely agree. If I'll be fortunate enough to have another baby, definitely will go for hypnobirth. It sounds like it's a lot, but if I would put it down to one thing, it's just you focus on your breathing. Because people talk about the music, about the voice, about the tape, about the visualization. No, not so much. If you just focus on your breath and are able to focus on that and remember that after every contraction, you really get a break, you're fine, you know?
Yeah, and our two doulas and two midwives who were at our birth were startled at how Marzi was doing. And they said, it's going to be a while yet because she's so relaxed but let's just check. Oh my God, she's at 10 centimeters. This baby's coming now. We've never seen this before because she was so successful in the breathing, just calming her body down and understanding the waves of what was happening and breathing with that they were completely startled by it.
But that's important what you said, understanding the waves. So I educated myself before about the whole process of birth, because there are different waves and they take different amount of pressure and they take different amount of time. So with this knowledge, I was a lot more relaxed because I knew what's coming next.
Yes, of course. Yeah. I think that's really valuable.
Admire women. I know one. A friend of mine. She didn't want to know anything. She just wanted to. She's like, women are doing every day. I was just like, I would just go with the flow. I wouldn't be able to do that. I had to know. I had to know before. I had to be prepared. So that was super helpful. I read a number of books, and that was really beneficial for the whole birth experience.
Amazing. Is there any ones that you'd particularly recommend that resonated with you the most?
It would definitely be the hypnobirthing.
Is that the name of the book, the title?
Hypnobirth or hypnobirthing.
I'll look.
That'd be great.
This one book would cover everything. It would cover the whole process, possible complications, and it's just amazing.
Yeah. That's great. I think resources like that are so valuable, and if I can link to them and help someone, I think that would be great. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah. I was going to look for the book. I can also have it on my phone. Yeah.
Was there, because you mentioned meditation as well, so hypnobirthing is whilst you were giving birth, but were you trying to lower your stress as well throughout the whole time of your pregnancy?
Oh, yes. I'm a big fan of Joe Dispenza work.
Yes.
So
Brilliant.
I would do at least 2 meditations a day, the morning and the evening one. And if I wanted, or if I had the time during the day, I would just do some more. Because I believe it proved in my life that it works. And I would just, it's a different type of meditation. It's almost like a meditation hack because it contains of so many different great, ways to slow down your brain waves and also visualize, and his voice, which you don't have to create something out of nothing. He tells you what to do and when, and it's 20 minutes. You know what I mean? It's like not sitting there and waiting and yeah.
I've gone in and out of using meditation, and the best way for me to use it every single day is just make it part of my routine. Something that I do when I get up. I come into the kitchen, I sit down for 10 minutes. I don't do 20, I do 10. But it's 10 minutes and it's a daily practice of mine. And I find it's invaluable to me now. And I'm much more resilient to the stresses that I experience that day and the things that come my way. I believe this would be very valuable to someone who's pregnant because it can be a stressful time anyway. Hormones are a little bit everywhere these times. And I'm not sure, I don't know a paper on this, but my friends would say the stress resilience might be slightly lower during pregnancy than normal. I don't know what your experience would be, but considering you're meditating twice a day, maybe that was not a concern for you.
what I also want to highlight as equally important to detox is emotional detox and getting ready to have a baby. So this is where I'm going to use the S word. It's basically dealing with your shit before the baby comes, because we can just drag so many conditioning into our motherhood and also the pregnancy process and in the labor that I spent 4 years of working on myself, getting ready emotionally to have a baby. So it takes a long time.
And detoxing.
And detoxing, obviously. But I'm saying it's like it's equally important.
Yeah.
Because we can sabotage the whole process. We can just unconsciously make it harder than it's supposed to be, or just have a really bad experience. I think that's what I was trying to avoid. I had to work on the dark spots of my personality, like we just mentioned, Joe Dispenza. To create new reality, you have to create new personality, basically. And it takes a lot of time, but definitely it pays off. Because now I couldn't be happier to be a mom, you know? That was my big dream, to be a mom. And my biggest fear was to be a mom as my mom was to me, which wasn't very good. So that was my biggest fear. And that's why I spent so much time working on myself to have this joy and this beautiful relationship now with a little beautiful human.
Marzi very successfully transitioned her personality. When she said it a moment, I said, yeah, right, change your personality. But she actually did. She became a much happier person. She wasn't an unhappy person before, but she oozes now. And it's natural. It's not fake. It's not pretend with a phony smile. It's natural. I've never seen, my experience, a more fulfilled woman in my life. And kudos to her for all the work that she did on her outlook on life and where her roadblocks were and her emergency brakes. That she's done a lot of work. She said 4 years, and that's correct. That's correct.
I even went to a boot camp in the forest in Spain to do Enlightened Warrior boot camp. It was crucial. But I just kept thinking about my 2 babies, because I don't know, always in my awareness there's 2 babies, boy and a girl, and I just did it for them, you know. I just left everything, took my stuff, and I went to the forest for 5 really hard days. And it was definitely one of the steps getting me closer to achieving my goal and to getting my dreams come true. Yeah.
That's an absolutely beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing it. I actually got goosebumps whilst you were saying everything. So that shows you. I mean, one thing I wrote down actually in my notes is how did you stay so vital? Because I think what's obvious when you look at pictures of you, as I'm looking at you now, you're just glowing, both of you, and you're vibrant and vital. And I think that's unusual as parents, actually, of a little one. But it seems like you've stayed that way throughout the entire time, and that just shows the extent of your commitment to being healthy, and also shows what a lucky and fortunate baby Gio is to have you as parents.
We feel that we are the fortunate ones to be the stewards for this boy coming into the world. And Marzi teaches me every day how to be a better father. I've joked before, when we met and we talked about a future, I said, well, I know how to do it right now, because I've got a 42-year-old and 39-year-old boy and girl from a previous marriage. So I know how to do it right now. And I knew some things, the bottom line for the dads out there is choose your battles well. That you don't need to win at all with your child. You want to give them freedom, keep them safe, but give them freedom to explore their boundaries as opposed to shutting them down, but Marzi shares with me her revelations and about raising children and what she reads and what she's learned, and she's right. We're doing a great job together. We're doing a great job.
Oh, we do. Yes.
Great team.
Great team.
I have. I know we're coming up on time, and I've actually kept you more than I said I would, so I apologize about that. If someone that you know falls pregnant, what's the most important things for them to consider? What would you say to them? That's my question. It sounds like I was going to add more to that. I wasn't.
What would I say to a person who just got pregnant?
Yes. So the most important things to consider from your experience, you've had multiple different interventions and used different components. What do you think is the most important thing to consider? And you might say there isn't one thing, and that's fine too. But
oh, really? I would say listen to your gut in the whole process. And I think for women, when they get pregnant, they automatically think about giving birth, and it's stressful. So, and there's so many different opinions and ways, and there's home births, there's hospital births, there's C-sections. Just listen to your gut. What sits with you right? So I think this is the most important thing, because women can get overwhelmed very quickly and very easily with all the amount of advices and resources. But just get ready, relax, enjoy, because it's a wonderful process. Keep a healthy balance, and yeah, that's it.
Tom?
I agree with Marzi. Listen to your gut, and then set yourself up with the professionals to explore what your gut is saying, because sometimes your gut is wrong. But you've got a fear, but that's in your gut, right? So you need to explore. Okay, this fear I have, this concern. You don't ignore it, but you don't dwell in it either. You explore with the experts to find out. Now, and maybe we're going to close here with the story of the birth. That we live in the jungle, in Costa Rica, but we weren't going to have a baby here in case there were complications. So we went into the capital and we looked at a couple of hospitals, and we found the one that and the OB-GYN that we were going to use, but we wanted a home birth, and so we rented a condominium for 6 weeks around the due date, so that we could be close to the hospital if we needed it. And then the time came, and Marzi's in labor, and the midwives come, and the doulas come, and I've got the little lights around the room, the soft lights, and I'm playing the Mozart music, and everything's great.
Stop, turn on my playlist. Yeah. I listen to this every day. It's my birth.
Yes, right. So much for Mozart. That Mozart went out the window there. And we actually had complications. And we had to go to the ER. We had to rush to the ER. There were complications. The baby wasn't coming down the canal. And so we get to the hospital, and we rush up to the 5th floor, elevators up into the surgical ward. And as I was the first one in, there's this guy on the other side of the room. And as I come in, he walks through a door and closes a door. And he had torn blue jeans on and dirty sneakers, and he comes back out in a white coat. Hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so. I'm the OB on call. And I said, where's our doctor? Well, I don't know. I don't know, but we're here.
It was a New Year's Eve.
Yeah, it was New Year's Eve.
About 7:30 p.m.,
And my mind immediately went into fight, flight, or fright. I mean, already we were there because we rushed to the hospital.
Of course.
And I thought, you don't get the sharpest knife in the drawer who's on call on New Year's Eve, right? So I asked a bunch of questions, and I said, well, it looks like we have a little time to continue with a natural birth. But if it doesn't occur, then we'll have to do a C-section. And we had been prepared back at home. We had the bag ready to go with the bag of snacks. We had everything in case we had to go to the hospital. And we prepared months ahead of time. What are the checklists of what you need? So we came and we had all of that. And it turned out that they were the perfect team for us. Gio was born not breathing. His APGAR was 3. He was blue, and it was extremely traumatic.
Yeah.
But they were, and I said to this guy, about 36-year-old guy, I said, how many emergency C-sections have you done?
Just C-sections, right?
C-sections, yeah. And he said, over 2,000. I said, what? You personally? Yes, me and my team, we've done over 2,000 C-sections. Well, the C-section rate in Costa Rica is over 85%, which is horrible, but that validated that this team knows what they're doing. I said, okay. And then we were in the hands of the angels. You know, we could only just be there and allow the experience to occur. But we were as prepared as we could be up to this. So I agree with Marzi. You follow your gut, or you listen to your gut, but then you explore to see if it's correct or not, right? But even then, after all of that, after everything we did, after all of the consultants and all of the hours, it came down to just breathe and let's pray for the best. So in the end, that was what it came down to for us. And as soon as Gio came out and they cut the cord, they took him over to the pediatric station there. They're pumping to get the meconium out of his mouth, and she was pumping his chest and he wasn't breathing. And she had somebody else, she was pumping the bulb over his mouth and he wasn't breathing. So she had somebody else do that. And then she starts massaging his chest, and then he coughs and he screams, and he's with us. But he opens his eyes and he's on this table. Big white lights are shining in his eyes, and 5 giants in white gowns, white hats, and white masks are all he can see. That's the trauma that our son came into this world with. After everything we did, everything, that's the trauma. But we were prepared for all of it. Said, I got you, man. Whatever it is, if you've got brain injury, if you're whatever, you're going to have the best life possible. It doesn't matter. Whatever it matters, but whatever it is, you're going to have the best life. We are committed to you. And the result is we have this beautiful 19-month-old little boy who looks everyone in the eye, and they feel that he's looking at their soul when he looks at them. And everyone loves Gio because he's so pure. We are really targeting that our child is an example of what's needed in this world to change the direction of where the planet's going. That, Einstein said, the problems you've created today can't be solved with the same level of thinking that created the problem. We need kids who think outside the box. And they're not going to think outside the box unless you give them freedom to explore the boundaries of their box at every age that they're at. They have to explore, right? And so we're very grateful to be stewards of this beautiful little being.
I just want to add that in the whole process, me knowing what is possible gave me a lot of power, because I knew I can choose what's happening to me in any situation. So even though I wanted home births and we were all ready for home births and it didn't work out, I was okay with going to the hospital because that was also one of the options. But also the hospital I have chosen, I have been in the hospital, I've seen it before. Even being there, being prepared to be having the C-section, I was asking questions about prolonged umbilical cord.
Umbilical cord, yes.
I just, even though it didn't happen, but for women, it's important to know that you can demand things the way you want it to be for you and for your child.
What Marzi is referring to is, do not cut the cord until we say okay, because you want to let the blood keep coming to baby from mom after baby comes out. And there's this tendency to cut it right away. There's no need to do that. You put baby on mom's chest, and baby will do the breast crawl, that they just somehow know where's that milk, where's that colostrum, and they do the breast crawl. And in our case, we couldn't do any of that because Gio wasn't breathing. Mm-hmm. So it was immediate. Cut the cord, get him over to the pediatric station, bring him back to life. But what Marzi is saying is so important, that the mother has power. Mm-hmm. And she was asking questions, and I was asking about silver nitrate. No, we're not putting silver nitrate in. And the pediatrician didn't like me at all. I said, no, we're not doing any vaccinations immediately at birth.
No vitamin K.
No vitamin K. Well, why not? Well, because Marzi's been taking vitamin K. Her blood values are excellent on vitamin K, because I checked, right? What Marzi's saying is so important, that the woman has power here to understand and what options are, and to say what you want in this process.
Yes, because there's many hospitals, many states, many countries where you go over 40 weeks, you be induced. It doesn't have to happen. You just look for the right provider for yourself. Take the time. Even we changed OB-GYN a month before baby was born.
Right.
At 8 months. I had a concern. I was like, I'm not going with this guy. We're looking for someone else. And then I asked, like Tom said, it's very important. Ask experts. Don't ask your friends. Don't ask Google. Ask experts. Ask the midwife that is 25 years of practice. Ask your pelvic floor therapist. Ask whoever you can trust with experience, and then you will find the person that is perfect for you, or close to perfect.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. That's true.
And after all that, if I'm pregnant again, I will still go for home birth, and I will still be prepared for any other circumstances. It did not traumatize me. It did not scare me. Everything was perfect. Of course, I would change a few things if I could now, but that's the next steps for the next baby.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Amazing. So that's planning on the cards.
Yes. Oops, I spilled the beans. I spilled the beans.
About what?
About planning for another baby. There you have it.
Well, there you have it. The best of luck. And I just want to say, I think your story is so valuable, and thank you, Tom, for bringing up the whole experience of the birthing process, and Marzi for your honesty and openness. I really appreciate it. And every single person's experience of that will be unique if they go through the complications like that. But you're not alone in that sense. I have friends, and at one point they thought they were going to lose their baby. At one point she thought she was not going to make it through that process, and it's extremely difficult. But the end result, they've got a beautiful baby girl. You've got a beautiful baby boy. And I think of my friends, and they are so happy with the life that they're currently having, and so are you. So I think you have to look on the positives. And I wish you the best of luck with planning for your next one.
Thank you so much.
Marzi, Tom, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you both.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you for listening to the Functional Health Podcast. You can find links to everything that we talked about today in the show notes. If you have a second, please consider leaving a 5-star rating on iTunes. It really does make a huge difference and helps get this valuable information out and reach more people. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up to date and know whenever I release a new episode. You can connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, or our website, and all questions are welcome. As always, thanks to Josh Aurelia for all the editing, and thank you all for your support.